Hari Om. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our next session of KINDLE Live. As usual, let's begin our session with prayers.
समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ.
Our real nature is Sat Chit Ananda. Sat is existence, Chit is the consciousness, and Ananda is the bliss. This consciousness which is infinite, having forgotten that that is our true nature, we associate our identity with only this mortal body. And this is our fall. When we are that glory, but due to our ignorance, we associate ourselves only with this body, or even worse, we have to now connect once again to our original self. But how to retrace our steps? How to go back to our original self? To know that, it is very, very important to understand what does it mean when we say fall. The Upanishads, like every wonderful mother, never gets tired of reminding us that thou art that. The Mahavakya. Constantly it is reminding us of our real nature. So, Upanishads also tell us that arise and awaken to know this truth. Let us continue on our journey to know the truth.
Certainly. Vedanta does not accept any real fall in man from the reality. The Upanishads are never tired of repeating the assertion, thou art that, Tat Tvamasi. Yet, you and I are feeling our separate existence, our weaknesses, our sorrows, and our limitations. It is always our bitter experience of the duality about us. The phenomenal world is evident and minute to minute is experienced by us. When we say us, now we have to understand that all four personalities are experiencing this reality. But Vedanta asserts that this seeming world of sense objects is not real. It asserts this is only a finite appearance. It can be ended. The world is seemingly real to us, just as the snake in the real. Beg your pardon, I'll read that thing again. The world is seemingly real to us, just as the snake is real to the deluded, although there is really only a rope. The ghost is real to the frightened, who in his ignorance mistakes the post to be the ghost. Mirage can never be, even when we see the mirage. Desert alone is the reality in it. We take a small pause. Mirage is what we see in the desert or any heated place. When you see far away, you see shimmerings of water, as though there is water, river or sea there. We are seeing it. Actually, there is nothing other than the desert. This has to be kept in mind very clearly. This upama or these examples are very relevant as we read further.
We have seen before earlier that actually the thing that was lying on the ground was the rope. But in our deluded state, we have very clearly seen it as a snake. 100% conviction is there that it is a snake. Therefore, this delusion or this mirage is extremely, extremely strong.
We read further. Thus, the eternal Sat Chit Anand alone is. The world and the egocentric idea of our separate existence are only superimposition upon the truth. Superimposition meaning that upon which something else is seen. For example, in the cinema hall, we don't see the screen. The film is superimposed. The pictures are superimposed on that screen. That is the meaning of superimposition. Does not mean the screen is not there, but we can't see it. They are all false. The plurality is a sad delusion. The one alone is real and true. Even so, we are today in our ignorance of the real, in our avidya, nescience, living in our own delusions. How did this delusion rise up? This ought to be the natural question now in our minds. An attempt to explain this stumbling doubt in the minds of the seeker has been made in Vedanta by the introduction of the term Maya.
Maya, a term known to all Indians and now very popular abroad also. So what does it mean? What is this Maya? Now we know that Maya means delusion, but let us understand it even more clearly.
Yes, we have our own understanding of this word, but may I request all of us to keep that understanding aside for a few minutes and let's understand from the Shastric point of view and what Gurudev wants to communicate about the word Maya. Shall we? Maya is defined as an inexplicable power of the Supreme, which is in that Tattvamasi, thou art that consciousness, that as inseparable as heat from fire. Just as we cannot have fire as a thing in itself after removing all the heat from it, nor can heat have any existence if the fire element is removed from it, so too Maya is the power inherent in the Supreme. Fire is heat, heat is fire. You can't separate the two. We will read further. It is possible that when we may have only a superficial understanding of this term, we entertain a growing suspicion that it is a tricky word introduced by the Vedantins in their Mayavad to veil the main issue of a pointed question and to confuse the questioner with a mysterious nothing. But such a feeling can rise up only out of our ignorance of the language Sanskrit. For in Sanskrit, the word Maya in its etymological meaning stands for that which is not. Ya ma sa Maya. So that our doubts and suspicions need not have any play at all.
Ma in Sanskrit means not. Ya means that. So that which is not is Maya in Sanskrit. So Maya Vad also, it is said, Vad means argument. Earlier, there used to be very learned scholars who used to meet regularly and then they used to have this intellectual arguments, debates, in order to make sure that a particular point in the scripture is right or wrong. We have already seen this, that in our Shastra, in Hinduism also, in the Vedic knowledge, nothing is just blindly accepted. It was always argued, debated, come to a consensus, and then accepted universally. That once it has argued around and then a decision has been made on it that yes, it is correct, then it was accepted without any questions. So here, Mayavad, that means, excuse me, the debate on Maya, whether Maya is there or not there, or is it just a hypothetical something, nothing which has been created
by the Vedantins.
By the Vedantins, no, it is not like that. It is very clearly explained that Maya cannot be separated from the Supreme. Just like heat cannot be separated from fire, or fire cannot be without the heat, similarly, Maya and Supreme are
one and the same.
One and the same.
The famous story of the boy Somadatta's father in Vedanta is often quoted to explain the Maya in us deluding us, as it were, with our own active cooperation and sympathy. Let us examine this story. So this story, there is a story about a person and his son, Devadatta. Let's read this. One newly initiated hermit during a pilgrimage felt tired and weary one hot day in the burning sun. He, seeing a shade arbor near the Ganges bank, took shelter there to rest. So, the two words, Rajshree, weary and arbor.
Weary means, of course, when one is tired, and arbor, like it is a lot of trees which are together,
forming a canopy kind of place where you
shady
place in the
where
sun,
you can rest.
Under the sun, then you rest very well.
And siesta, which comes later, will also mean a nap. When you take a nap in the afternoon, it is called as a siesta.
He, seeing a shaded arbor near the Ganges bank, took shelter there to rest. There was a narrow piece of rock upon which he stretched himself and composed to a restful siesta. As he was dozing off, in those moments between waking and sleeping, his attention was attracted to two village girls who had come to the Ganges to collect water. They filled their pots and went away quietly. But the vision generated a line of thinking in half-sleep hermit. Why not? Certainly, there is no harm. Supposing I marry one of them, then I shall keep a small little house. Certainly, there must be 3 spacious rooms at least, and I shall be a very severe and grave husband to her. Where is all this happening? In his thoughts, in his mind. Working in my own fields, I shall live a very happy life of contentment and joy. Then the firstborn. Yes, a fat, beautiful son. Of course, I must name him Somadatta. And we shall all 3 sleep in the same bed. But is there space enough for my son? Devi, please give some more space to our son. He might fall down. Who's asking? Who's saying all this? The hermit. Lord, how can I answer? She move. Move to where? You move a bit to your end. All right. Splash. Poor Somadatta's father moved a little towards his side, and the stone narrowed. He lost his balance and rolled down into the Ganges water. Awakened, the hermit swam out and reached the shore. Now, friends, what made the hermit fall? And after his awakening, where should he go to regain his young wife and only child? The poor brahmachari, a hermit, created the world of Somadatta in himself, and identifying completely with it, came to live the dream life as though real, and thus suffered the fall. Means what?
The whole story of Somadatta, everything he created in his mind. Just a whiff, a glance at the two girls who came to fill their water, who filled the water and went away. And this hermit sleeping over there on the rock has got married to one of them, has created his own house, his rooms, his bed, a child also, and now the child is sleeping on the bed who requires more space. And then he asks his wife to move to create more space. And when he himself moves, of course, he falls into the water of the Ganges, since it was just all imaginary and he was dreaming. So, in his own world, in his own mind, he had created the whole world, imaginary world.
This story is an indication. What it is indicating to is coming. So too, pure eternal self, we all are. The self in a dream has forgotten itself and dreams of its own samsara. Wake up, roll out of this narrow place and false identification. Dip into the cold Ganges waters, the Shrutis, and get awakened. End the undivine dream at one stroke. The power in Somadatta's father, with which he lived his domestic life and ultimately fell down into the Ganges, is Maya. That which is not in his own mind, existing as his own nature. Maya is manifested in the world as the three distinct eternal qualities. The sattva, unactivity. You will not find this word in the dictionary.
Also, you might not find it in this book if you have the Kindle-like book. Unfortunately, the word over there is missing. So please know that when it is written the first, the unactivity, that is sattva.
Sattva, that word
so please
sattva.
Write that word sattva over there.
I'll read that again. The sattva, unactivity. The raja, activity. The tamas, inactivity. All the three qualities are ever in a state of admixture. Their proportions, of course, vary from individual to individual, and in the same individual, it differs from time to time. So, inactivity we know, activity also we know.
Yes.
What is unactivity? Inactivity means something that you want to do and you don't do it, or you want to do it later. Procrastination. Activity, certainly you know that you should do this
When you do something.
when you do something. Now, while doing that, either you can do it willfully or not willingly. Unactivity are those activities which are your ordained duties, which you ought to do. Thereby, performing those actions is unactivity. In Bhagavad Gita, there is an entire chapter on this, but we will now further continue reading our Kindle life. When the supreme reality, the eternal intelligence, gets reflected in the pure, prominent Maya, Guna Pradhana Maya, we get a very distinct and clear reflection of the supreme in it. This is the pure, or what is called as the God principle. The reflection is dimmer in the sattva mix with raja and tamas, called as Malina Maya. This is the egocentric jiva, individual mortal. There is this chart that is going to come later. You can certainly refer to it, which Gurudev is pointing here. The God principle manifests itself around us in the world outside as three main accomplishments. We observe that at every moment things are being created and born. At every moment things and beings are destroyed and dead. And certainly between these 2 points of an unknown beginning and an equally uncertain end, we also watch things and beings maintained. In order to facilitate the common man to grasp these three powers manifest about him, we have them represented as the Creator, Lord Brahmaji, the maintainer, Lord Vishnu, and the annihilator, Lord Shiva. So, how beautifully Gurudev has connected the spiritual, the philosophy to our religion, bhakti.
We have been explained what is Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh.
In their essence.
These are the three conscious powers which have particular functions.
It is coming further. To create a pot, the potter must have pre-knowledge of what he is going to make. Thus, the creator ought to know what he is to create. We have thus Lord Brahma Ji married to Saraswati, the goddess of learning and knowledge. In order to maintain, we need the capacity to maintain. A pauper cannot be the head of the family and maintain the family. Thus, we have Mother Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and plenty, as the consort of Lord Vishnu. Similarly, Lord Shiva cannot carry on the functions of annihilation unless there be for him a field of finite destructible objects. Without the phenomenal world, we cannot have the manifestation of the Rudra mind. So, Lord Shiva is the ably supported by his devoted partner, Goddess Uma, the Prakriti. So here, how beautifully the three gods have been introduced, and their three powers, their three Shaktis, their three spouses are also introduced.
So very nicely, you should understand this clearly now, that Brahmaji, the creator, so one who creates has to know what he is going to create. And that power to know or knowledge is the goddess Saraswati. Similarly, Vishnu is the maintainer. And in order to maintain, we all know that very practically, you require wealth. So the goddess of wealth for Vishnu is Ma Lakshmi. And finally, the world, which is materialistic or objective or anything which can be destroyed.
So that recreation is taken.
Recreation takes place. So that world, the Prakriti has to be there in order to be able to be destroyed. So this is how the powers and the creators are there.
So in the same way, all Devi Devatas have a particular requirement and a need to fulfill. Therefore, just don't go on the false thinking that these are nothing but just names or just as murtis. No, they are powers which have a particular duty to be performed. We move ahead. Even when the Trinity is thus shown to be three distinct divine personalities, it is also shown clearly that they are distinct and separate powers divine. The oneness of them is the soulful song in our Puranas. But this subtle song is heard only by the most attentive and the most cultured. In Sadguru, Sri Dattatreya, the teacher's teacher, we have a synthesis of all the three lords, and in Goddess Durga, we have the representation of a total synthesis of the three divine consorts.
How nicely now religion has been explained to you, that what our gods are, what it means. So, Sri Dattatreya or the Trinity of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh is in one. When it is said to be in one power, the teacher of teachers, it is just called Dattatreya. Similarly, of the three consorts which are there, of these three powers, when they come together, they come in the form of Mother Durga.
So then, whatever be the seeming plurality among our gods, there is but one and the same God principle. In fact, individually, each of them is helpless. Unless there is creation, the other two functions are impossible. Without Vishnu, the others are impotent. If Shiva, Tattva, does not function, Brahmaji or Vishnu cannot come to play at all. Only as a well-organized team can the three together work and manifest. The one God principle alone exists. The plurality is a delusion, a false understanding. So from our point of view, when we see them three. But from that point of view, from the Ishvara's point of view, from the Brahman's point of view, they are nothing but one. One power together. If the reflection of the truth in pure Sattva Maya is the God principle, the broken, dim reflection of the same truth supreme in a medium of impure Maya is the individual ego center, the samsarin, that is us. The rajas is activity, the tamas is inactivity. This medium of reflection producing the jiva dream is something like a cup of cow dung water reflecting the sun. The reflection cannot be a pure and steady, as clear and true to the original as the reflection of the same sun would be in the cup of a pure, crystal clear, steady Ganges water. Of course, because cow dung is
Muddy water.
Muddy water.
So naturally the reflection will not be pure and clear. So any medium which is muddy, the reflection will not be clear. As clear the medium of reflection, the image will be more clear.
How this dimness and agitation come to be is represented on the right hand side of the chart appended at the end of this chapter, which we will read later. The tamas quality acts in us in two distinct ways. It produces the mental agitation, which is called vikshepa, and the veiling of the truth, avarna. Let us examine what these are. Remember, these two powers are not only fully independent, each depends upon the other. Vikshepa creates agitation. Now, those who are reading the soft copy, it is written misprint over there. It is saying as veiling. It is not veiling, it is agitation. And the avarna creates veiling.
We have seen this before, earlier also many a times, that Vikshepa and Avarna, these two are. Avarna is the veiling and Vikshepa is the agitations.
It's a print error. We move ahead. The veiling power of the tamas in us plays in us in three distinct negativities, such as A, don't know, B, can't understand, C, not experienced. So what it does, it gives these three negativities to us. These three negative concepts in us are removed by the three main items of Vedanta practices: listening, Shravana, reflection, Manana, and meditation, Nididhyasana. All of you, I am sure, remember these three words which have been spoken in the book before. How beautifully Gurudev is connecting the three abhyasa or sadhanas of Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, to be useful in removing the three negativities that Maya creates in us. I don't know, I can't understand, not experience.
I would just like to add over here once again to remind you that Avarna is the veiling power of tamas. Means it completely hides the truth. Like it has hidden the rope completely by superimposing
the snake.
But that superimposition of the snake, because it cannot be the truth cannot be understood, something else has been superimposed on it. That is done by Vikshepa, by the mind. Remember that clearly. So Avarana and Vikshepa, don't get confused at all. The veiling power is of tamas, and this veiling power comes in these three forms: I don't know, I cannot understand, and I have not experienced it. So this is the quality of tamas. And this is not just the problem, the solution has been also given.
Of course.
So solution to this problem is
Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. We read further. The first of the three main tragedies born of the wailing power in us is that left to ourselves, few of us have in us the capacity to independently observe, analyze and conclude that there is a God principle behind the ever-changing flux in the phenomenal world. It is not easy to understand by yourself. I don't know is the grossest state of avarana. This is removed by listening directly from the great masters or directly through the great scriptures. Remember, it is saying listening, Shravana. When we have removed this negativity, a subtler one rises up into prominence. Namely, I can't understand. This is surmounted by intellectual analysis and reasoning. When the seeker comes to feel that in and through the endless names and form is running a golden cord of unity, the sense of oneness, the Atman. But often students of philosophy at this stage learn to devalue their own intellectual awareness of this changeless truth behind the melody of life. The medley of life as not a practical fact, since it is not experienced by them. This avarana manifestation in us is removed by the process of the practice prescribed for the Vedanta students called meditation. In Vedanta, meditation is called Nididhyasana. Meditation is a process of inner self-discipline by which through constant practice the seeker learns the art of keeping his mind at one and the same chosen line of thinking to strict and severe exclusion of all other dissimilar current of thoughts. Ultimately, the sadhaka succeeds in bringing his mind to a complete stillness in which, unlike in sleep, he has his entire awareness brightly lit up and kindling in his bosom. At this moment of experiencing the transcendental bliss and knowledge called the Savikalpa Samadhi, the sadhaka comes to chop off his last traces of the avarana in his inner composition. Savikalpa Samadhi. We will discuss and explain this weekend, but tomorrow we will continue further.
I know it's a lot in this chapter, one of the most important and beautiful chapters in this book. Kindly read it again and think about everything which we have spoken about. Let us end this session with prayers.
Om Asito ma Satgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mrutam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om to everyone. Hari Om.